Hi everyone, this is Andy from Slay, just showing some new features for BoneBreaker that work with Blender 2.82. It might work retroactively, I simply don't know anymore. Um, let's close Blender and take a look at Unreal first. This is default animations for a third-person project. This is the animation. Obviously, this is not the animation that actually exports, and that is because of the retargeting options for the skeleton. In the default setup, they'll be set up like this. Everything is following the translation of the skeleton except for the pelvis and the root. I'm going to click on root, reset everything to animation. You'll see the animation gets wonky like that, and that's just how the animation is. This is what actually export. I'm going to leave the skeleton set this way. It'll be a better idea and it'll give me a better understanding of what needs to be fixed. I'm going to export this animation. Third person run, that's fine. 2013, everything disabled except the preview mesh and the local time. With that exported, and I can actually close out of that too. Just load up Blender and bring up the animation. Now, sometimes Blender is just quitting whenever you start doing stuff. Sometimes there's artifacts in the display. Those are all Blender issues. I assume that they will be updated or fixed eventually. This version is really bad, behaving really unpredictably at times. So working with this has been quite fun. Simply clicking the two buttons will get me to this, which is already something I can work with. This is fine to export and ready to go. But there are a few things that I personally don't like and that this plugin has tools to fix. The first one being the position of the bones being drastically different from the original. You can see this is my animation, this is the original animation. Now, that's not bad, but it's not good either. So we have some new tools to use, and they're within here. You'll see the Unreal bones, more or less. If you go into wireframe mode, you'll see there's a bone here marked in green. This bone actually controls the pelvis. Now I'm in pose mode, so if I make changes here, it will actually move things. But you can see that I need a degree of about 45 or so to be where I want to be where I need to be. So I need to make this change globally, and I can do that in edit mode. I can just rotate that bone on the x-axis by a negative 45 degree by hand, and that will put that pelvis where it should be, more or less. This will be a global change. Every frame will have that happen. That's kind of the same thing for this pole over here. You can see the arrow is not quite on the knee. It's not really through when you get here is perfect. So you know, I'm just showing it anyway. Also, I'll make sure that it says root up here in the right corner. Tab into edit mode. G to grab, X to mark it on the left, and then I'll do this one really a lot so you can see the arrow moving, and you can see now that has taken effect. And if I scroll through the animation, that's happening for every frame. So it gives you an idea of where we're going here. I'm going to undo that by looking from top view and kind of eyeballing it like this on the right side of the line. Seems to work for me. And you can see now it's more or less aligned with that. And if I scroll through the animation, of course, here it will be off. So I can fix that on a frame by frame basis. Another thing to note is probably what happens here with the neck mostly. But we're gonna also handle that on an animation per animation basis, on a frame by frame basis. So let's grab in object mode, let's grab the rig and let's bake those positions in. Gonna go into pose mode, select all, bake action, and visual keying, overwrite, and this will take care of replacing all of the bones. Make sure you click no follow before you click any other option, and now we can actually go into solid mode and show the difference of the hip bone mostly and the knee between this animation and my animation. You can see that that change seems to have been much more stable. Now let's fix the rest of the issues here. So there's a few things to note. First of all, those 3 bones in this animation are moved from where they should be with translations, and you can clear all of that by hitting Alt G. Making changes right now, make sure that you turn this on so that the changes actually stay. I'm going to just go through frame by frame and reset them all, and it's just Alt G every time. An alternative, faster alternative actually, would be to just select them and then remove all selected. Right now I've cleared them all though, and I kind of got an idea of how the animation looks by scrolling through. Let's see the difference between no follow and follow. You can see that the head bone there is actually out of whack, just a tad. So for that one, we're going to just remove all the frames. You can see there is no more frames. As I scroll through now, the head will just be positioned by wherever Rigify tells it to position itself. So for that, we'll go here and disable the neck follow. You can also add the head follow. We'll disable that. Obviously there is a bone in the chain that has some weird rotation or for Rigify, or it wouldn't be doing this. But that's kind of expected. It's a compromise. Go back to here and let's take a look at how that looks. Sorry, much better. There's one frame that changes kind of drastically, and that's from here to here. So I just copy pasted that frame, and you know, a little bit of that twist is fine, so I'll add it back in. Here is really looking at a different area. That's just kind of how the animation is, I suppose. Technically, I can technically fix this by going to where the look is the most compromised. Since there are no other frames, grab to grab or R to rotate, on Z, adjust this slightly. What helps with that is to enable the face so that you can see where it's looking at. We can kind of try to make that flat all the way across. So let's say here is another area. I'm going to rotate that. And if you were making a through first person, third person, whatever character thing, it might help to have that in there to do this and align that view for the head bob. Okay. So for the last frame too, let's just do that. Bring the view into a nice. So for the last frame, I can copy the position of that head and paste it, and that will kind of pass it through. Doesn't need to be perfect. It just needs to be rough. I can disable the face again, go back to BoneBreaker and take a look at no change, my animation. Same thing here, no change, my animation, no change, my animation, etc. So now that I'm happy with this, I want to export it. And yes, I can click key all frames, but if I export this again, because it's an animation that came in from Unreal, you're going to find that there is extra keyframes within it. So we're going to just select it, go into pose mode, select all the bones, over here in the dope sheet, hit numpad delete to zoom in, and you can see the double keys. I need to get rid of all those keys, and I'm going to do it manually by just deleting the keyframes, as long as all the bones are selected. Another thing that I need to double check, and I might as well do it once just to make sure, is that once I bake, the bones aren't actually moving away from where they're supposed to be. So if I bake the action right now and I clear the constraints, If the bones move, I know something is amiss. If everything stays in place, just like that, then everything is going to export fine. Now that that's done, let's click on no follow and then follow my animation again. Go back into the rig, go back into post mode and make sure that those are there. So that works. It doesn't really matter for the export, by the way. I could have exported right away. I just recovering that so that everything is keyed back and moving again. I'm going to export this to the desktop, untitled, or let's call it test. So with the previous version, importing the animation after passing it through would create exorcist-like movement in the skeleton. The head was spinning on its own. It was quite something. With this version, hopefully, it won't. If you select the skeleton, if you modify the skeleton, you'll see that it's been flagged. So I'll use that one. And you'll get two. One of them is just a frame. You can toss it out. And as due to the naming and the way the actions work, I didn't want to mess with it. You can see that this one imported and it has the two blend orient. You can also see that the retargeting options are all set to animation and that all the changes I did are actually in there. You should have not gotten any warnings about anything, but just to make sure, we go into the message log. Message log doesn't say anything, so we know we're good. Let's work on the second animation to test it. I was having a lot of trouble with it when making that hard landing tutorial that uses this animation. Basically the head was just spinning all around. That animation is obviously a variation of the jump end, so we're going to correct the jump end, export it, save, FBX 13, everything's fine, get into Blender, file new, and import UE4. Actually, you know what, it doesn't even matter because this one doesn't have any curves. Third person jump end, import, good to go. Hit do it all, get the rig. It takes a little bit. We got the rig, let's do it all. And we got the animation. Now you can really see here where that hip is going to be an issue. This is just a few frames though, and the position here is actually not too bad. What I'll do is I will control copy that pose to have it saved up, and then go back to UE4 so that I can modify the position of that pelvis like before. I don't know by how much, so let's rotate on Y, rotate on X rather. And let's say that this is a negative 72, negative 73. Let's do negative 73. Rotate X, negative 73. Okay. Like before, object mode, select the rig, pose mode, select all, bake action, visual keying, override current. Now let's see the difference between no follow and my animation. You can see that there is a bit going on there with that pelvis rotation. So first off, let's come back to the animation that I copied the frame for earlier. Should have been this one. Let's paste it back. Okay, not quite sure why that's doing that, but so that just means that we won't be using that, or maybe Control Shift V. Nope. Alright, so then we won't be pasting it, we'll be fixing it manually instead. In the end, it doesn't really matter anyway. We just need to pick the frame that is the worst after a remove all probably. So the remove all fixed it, and now I can use curves to fix this. rotate on X. Well, let's see if the tweak bone does a little better job at it. Let's try that one. There you go. Okay. So with that one selected, let's remove all those too. Let's scroll through the animation. Let's see how that looks. Here we go. Okay. So this is by far the worst frame, I think, but we need the start and the end. So let's fix the end. Rotate on X, bring it down. Rotate on Y, bring it the other way around. Maybe a little rotation on Z to bring it to where it faces us. Let's not overdo that. Let's also make sure that I didn't have that on the recording. So rotate Z just a little. Let's go. No follow my animation. Okay. Not too bad. Not too bad. I would say that it needs a little more on the Y. Sorry, that's gotta grab the right thing again. It's the inner blue one. Spine franke. I would say that's correct. Okay. Let's loop back through the animations and let's do the same thing on this one. Rotate on X to bring it up. And rotate on Z or rotate on Y. It's not rotating on Y there. Just a little here. Okay, with that done, if I go into no follow, that's fairly decent. I can fix this manually by translating it back to eyeballing it like that, but keep in mind that it shifts because it's on there, so maybe delete this keyframe for it. And then here it starts moving again, so perhaps I want this one forward so that it's more adjusted. Okay, so let's go back to the pelvis and fix that essentially. Rotate on X, bring it down. Rotate on Y, bring it is messy like that. When you start seeing rotations like this is due to stretching. So one of the bones inside the rig is doing that, and that is a good thing to know how to fix. I'm going to come in here, open those up, and it's probably the spine itself. If you go to the copy transforms, it will have a stretch too. If I remove the stretch too, it will stop moving around in circles on me. So I can then just grab this and go back to that view, rotate on Y, adjust it. Okay. So on this frame, obviously the legs now need adjusting. We'll go to no animation and let's see where that leg is at. Go to my animation and see what that is at. Not quite sure what happened there. The rig lost its way because I was showing the bones. Okay, that's correct. So on the rig, make sure you had that before you go from no animation to my animation. Now that I screwed it up, let's Ctrl Z to undo it. Go back to here. Okay. Make sure that you shift click that to hide it. Go to no animation, go to my animation. And here we are, back in working order. So this bone obviously needs to be moved. I'm not really quite sure of why it is under the leg. I'm going to remove all the keyframes for them. And then scrub through and see what happens. So they're being pointed down by the impact, it seems. What I'll do is I'll go into the first keyframe and I to visual location, rotation and scale, and then that will persist throughout the animation. So that might have just fixed everything. Let's have a look. Let's also do it on the last frame just to be safe. And then if we go no follow, my animation, we get a pretty decent base here. Last frame. And this one. So, I'll say that I'm happy with this. And like before, I can key off frames and probably export. But I need to look here and make sure that, because this was an Unreal animation, we need to make sure that it doesn't have extra keys in between the frames. So looks to be pretty much okay. You can select all the bones and rekey the animation, but it should be good enough for export already. So we'll try that. Onto the desktop. I'll just call it test 2. Come into Unreal and I can close out of that. Import test 2. Again, select the correct skeleton, import, and no errors. And this time around I actually have a good name on it. And it's coming in. It looks like it's just fine. You can see by scrolling through it slowly that there are no artifacts except for that, maybe that thigh coming in. Going to the retargeting options, translation, everything's on animation. Let's just have a look at what happens when you set it to skeleton, and then change back this to animation and animation. Okay. And now you have an animation that is retargeted with the translation of the skeleton, but taking in the new rotations that we set. Let's make sure that all of the IK is set to recursively on animation. And that way my IK bones will always follow if they are animated. This helps with other optimization when you're actually building a game. That's it. I think I more or less showed everything. What did not come up is a couple of the Blender glitches that we are having. I did mention them, but not much else other than that. If you're ever, after you come back from an export, I guess, just click key all frames, it'll bring you back to this and you'll be fine to work on it again. So okay, now that we did all that, let's do, for example, let's put this hand in a special position. I'm going to actually select all of those minus that and remove all. And I'll delete all the keyframes for it, and then I'm going to reset the position, Alt G, reset the rotation, Alt R, reset the scale, Alt S, and we're good to go. Let's come in here and deselect both the palm and the hand. Middle mouse click to deselect. And then If you scale this, you'll notice that this happens. That's normal. You just swap this to individual origins and then the fingers will work fine. So let's go into solid view. Maybe let's let's select just the tips. I do not really want to scale the FK of the fingers. I just want to open the hand up a little. There. Rotate on its x-axis, or let's eyeball it. Rotate and there. Let's also rotate this one. Per se, not per se. I want something like that. And scale, we open it up. There. Okay, so it's like a slapping hand. Alright, so we're gonna bring this one up to about here. Rotate it on the x-axis to bring it up. Move it forward. Okay, that's frame 0. Now that frame will stay there no matter what, which means that we need to make it move. To make it move along with the animation, I can just bring this down on Z and kind of match the shoulder position. So now it's animated to move along. And to make it actually wave, I'll go into the middle frame here, and I'll rotate on the y-axis just like that, and maybe a little on the x-axis forward too, on the x-axis forward too. There. So technically, now I can scrub through this and I'll be waving as I fall down. Okay. Key all frames, export the rig, desktop and test 2 so that we can override it. Go back to Unreal, test 2, and just click on re-import. Here we go. That's it. Hope that helps. All of the features seem to be currently working alright. Thanks for watching, and have a nice day.